were able to go to Echo Conference last weekend. It was so good. Basically, it was so filling because we got to really see what it is to build a community of women, and that's what we're doing here. So I just want you guys to, we're gonna do a quick song of worship. I know that the week sometimes can be super chaotic, but I really feel like this is a good time to just take a moment and pause. I feel like as women, we're always on the go. We're always doing something, preparing for something else, preparing for tomorrow. Right. And I feel like, at least for me, when we worship, it's just a moment where you're like, okay, God, like, let me just stand still. I don't have to worry about the next maybe hour. I can literally just focus on you. Right. How many of you feel like that? Yes. Right? So let's just take a time to worship and just invite the Holy Spirit to just come into this place. You can worship however you worship. We're going to put a song. If you pray, if you feel like you can find a corner to dance, whatever it is that your worship looks like, you're more than welcome to do that. Thank you, God, for your Holy Spirit. Thank you for this time, Jesus. We're so grateful for you, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity to just be able to be in your presence, God. something completely out of the normal. These are women that chose a Saturday to be in your presence and learn about you, God. I pray that you're birthing stories here in this place, God. I pray for every single woman that came here, that when they leave Jesus, that they feel inspired to share their story and they become part of this generation of women that are changing things. God, we honor you, we love you, and in your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Wow. I want to see people. Hi guys. Welcome to the first Her Story of 2022. We are so excited to see you guys. So many new faces. We're believing and expecting for God to move in such a mighty way this year for Her Story. If you guys are new and this is your first time, the way that it normally goes about is that we have a song of worship, we have someone who shares their story, and then we have one of our speakers who shares an encouraging word. So that's kind of the way that we structure it.
Yes, good morning. So my name is Tatiana. It's such a blessing to be here with all of you today.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are having a blessed Saturday so far, and it's just going to get better. So if you are enjoying what Her Story is doing, if it's been a blessing to your life, and you're looking for a way to get more connected to community, we've actually entered a new season of Her Story small groups. And let me just say that these small groups have kicked off in an amazing way, far beyond what we expected.
Yeah.
But that's how God is, right?
Amen.
And so if you want to get plugged into one of our Her Story small groups or any small group that Journey has available right now, you'll want to get with our special lady in red, Crystal, and she can give you any information you need for that.
And so you guys might be wondering when our next event is. So our next event, our first quarterly, so this is the last one that's gonna look like this. Our next one's gonna be a quarterly. We're moving to that because we're just growing so quickly. It's gonna be March 18th, so mark your calendar. It's a Friday night, so it'll look different. Yeah. It'll be from 7 to 9 p.m. And we're so excited. And then we have another exciting announcement. We have conference! Woo! Conference is gonna be June 11th. So just mark that, it's a Saturday, just mark it in your calendars. At the March hang, we will have more information for you guys to understand how that day is gonna look like.
Yes, and needless to say, we are so excited. In this short amount of time, we're already doing a women's conference. And that in itself is a testimony to what God is doing. And so if you are loving what Her Story is doing, if it has impacted your life, if you have been encouraged, if you've been blessed by it, and you want to be a part of this team, you want to serve in this team, we have so many opportunities right now because we're growing so fast. We have opportunities in operations, which would be with me. We have greeters, we have outreach, we have connections, so many opportunities. So if you're interested in joining this group of women, you'll want to get with either Erica. Is Glenda here? Erica. after our gathering, or Kim, and they'll give you more information.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I have the immense honor of presenting your storyteller for today. And I just want to say that she is such a remarkable and bold woman of God. She exemplifies complete confidence in who she is in God. And I know that in the story she's going to share with you today, she's going to bless, she's going to impart and speak life into you. And I'm just so excited because I get to call her my friend. So let's give it up for Kim.
Wow, I should change my story. She just called me confident. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, I guess, I don't know, should I go up here? Can you guys see me better if I'm up here? Oh, that's intimidating. No, thank you. I'm just gonna move it. Actually, I'll go up. No, I'm okay. All right. Hi, guys. I'm Kim. I get to serve on the A team here at Journey Church. Whoop, whoop, A team. We do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, but also last year and this year, I was called to serve on Her Story, and it has impacted me in such a way. It's allowed me to meet so many new people. Mind you, I thought I didn't like people. I thought I didn't like people, but I actually do. I actually have found that through this ministry, I love being able to be vulnerable and honest and share my story with other women. And so that's what I'm going to do here today. So just give me a second to open up my tablet so I don't forget what I'm saying. Money down. Thanks. All right. So part of my story, I think a lot of us go through what I'm going to share today. I was born to a 21-year-old immigrant mom. She was first time in America. She moved here when she was 16, and she met my dad. They got married. They had me. She was 21, and I was a happy little girl. I had an amazing childhood. from the ages of being born to 9. And then we moved to New York, and everything shifted for me. So I moved somewhere where I just didn't feel like I fit in anymore. I was moved to a white suburb where it was majority Caucasian people, and I was one of 3 Latinas in my school. And I remember looking around and looking at what the standard of beauty was out in society, and looking around my school and thinking, I don't belong here. You know, why did my parents come here? What is the reason that they allowed me to be born in this country? Because I felt like I was too Latin to be in that space, right? Too dark skinned. My hair was too curly and dark, and my eyes were brown. I didn't feel like I fit in. And then we started going to a Pentecostal church, which was all Latinos, and it was all a bunch of people that looked just like me. But I didn't have the same interests as them. I don't listen to Latin music like that. Don't hate me, please don't hate me. I don't. It's just not a thing that I do. I listen to musicals. I listen to Journey. I listen to Queen, and I felt like I didn't fit in there either. I felt like I didn't have a place, and I was like, I just remember thinking at 12, 13, what am I doing here on this planet? Like, I don't understand. I don't fit anywhere. And all I remember is that I kept asking God, why? And I just didn't get an answer. But I don't think it's because he didn't want to give me an answer. I think it's because there was a purpose in my journey, right? There was a purpose in what I was going through. And so I went to college, and I did what I thought was going to bring me the confidence that I needed to feel strong about who I was. I did whatever I wanted with no care of what anybody else had to say, no care of anyone's feelings. I was like, if I want to party, I'm going to party. If I want to drink, I'm going to drink. And then I flunked out of college. And so then came the self-loathing, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I started feeling like there was no purpose in this. There was no reason for me to be here. I was just existing. I was meant to live my life and die and not make a blip on this earth and not impact anyone or anything. And then God tugged at my heartstrings again, and he was like, hey, I'm calling you. Like, I'm knocking at your door. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, but why? What is it that I have to give that you're knocking at my door for? I don't understand. And I really started praying. And when we moved to Florida with my husband, and I got plugged into community here, I was still asking myself that question at 25 years old. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know that I have a calling. I know you have a purpose for me, God, but what is it? Because I don't have a story to tell. I don't have like anything impactful to talk to people about. But God's like, you're asking the wrong question. You're asking me why. Like, why am I like this? That's not the question I want you to ask. And I remember at my Freedom Conference, actually, Elizabeth was in my Freedom group, and I see so many faces from that Freedom group, and I'm like, man, God, you did such amazing things in that group. But at a Freedom Conference, God was like, I want you to ask me for what reason, for what purpose, and for who did I make you the way that I made you. And so I asked him that, and I pressed into him, and I kept saying, why God? Like, not why, but for what? For what reason did you make me the way that you made me? And I think it also didn't help that I didn't really fit in like at home either sometimes, because again, my parents were immigrants, and so they didn't understand. They were too busy hustling, working to make sure that I got the life that they didn't get. And then I was sitting there like trying to be an intellectual, a creative, and they're like, we just don't get that part of you, because they didn't have the ability to express those parts of themselves. So I fell into this like cycle of self-pity and loathing, because I felt like a failure in my entire life. Like I was never good enough to actually have a place. And then as I'm like at Freedom and I'm asking God, like, hey, what is the reason for this? What is the reason? I didn't get an answer. I actually didn't get an answer for a whole year. It was the following year that I got to lead a Freedom group with one of my now closest friends in the whole world, Kat. I love her so much, and she is the reason that I found purpose, because leading that Freedom group, I realized that I could be vulnerable and share my story with her, with the girls in our group, and that I would not be rejected, and that I would be loved. And also, that they were going through similar things, you
Yeah.
know? And for this particular conversation, I said, God, what do you want me to talk about? And he was like, I want you to tell them to not discount their stories. Because we do that so often as women. We keep our stories to ourselves and we say, it's just for me. You know, I'm not gonna let anyone else in. I'm not gonna tell anyone else. But the crazy part and what God revealed to me is that the enemy wants us to stay silent. The enemy wants us to keep our stories to ourselves, because if that happens, then we allow our flesh to win. And if we allow our flesh to win, that means that the spirit isn't what is navigating us in our daily lives, right? And so when that happens, we are unable to fully step into the purpose that God has for us. And I'm not talking about your calling like being on worship or being here or being, you know, with kids. I'm talking about your calling at home. You know, you want to be a warrior, right? You want to be a warrior in your house. We are called to do that. We cannot do that if we are doubting ourselves and insecure in who God called us to be. You know, I believe it's Proverbs 31 that talks about the ideal woman, right, that we are called to be. And it says, you know, she is wise and she builds her home. But how can we do that if we don't even believe in ourselves, right? And we don't share these stories to boast, and we don't share these stories to be like, oh, woe is me, like these were my mistakes. No, it's in spite of those mistakes that God glorifies himself. You know, God glorifies himself so that we can share with others, so that they don't feel alone. Imagine the lives that would come to Christ if they shared the dirtiest parts of them, they would still be loved and accepted. You know, and at the end of the day, that is our main calling. Everyone in this room has that calling. It's like, how are we going to bring more hearts to Jesus, right? More souls to Jesus. We do that by being ourselves. You know, and it doesn't matter the way you dress. It doesn't matter how you do your makeup, how you do your hair. He made you that way specifically. So don't let the lies of the enemy discount, because I did that for so long and I didn't realize that I was isolated. I didn't realize that I didn't have community in my life. I thought I was okay with it. I was like, I have my husband and I have my really close circle of friends. But I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't love so many of you if I had let the enemy keep me in that lie. So I'm honestly super grateful for all of you, because this is one of the most beautiful things that God has gifted me. And that's what it is, it's a gift. So I want you guys today to vow to yourselves and to promise yourselves that you're not going to stay silent, because your story matters, you know. And so I'm telling you my story, and my story matters. And I want you to stand in confidence in God, not in your own confidence, because when I worked on building my confidence, I failed. I was confident in my own strength and in my own knowledge, which meant that somebody could come and say one thing to me and topple that down, you know. But when I'm confident in who God called me to be, and I read the word, right, and we put on the armor of the Holy Spirit, we're prepared for anything. Someone can come against you and come against your character, and you have God's love and God's purpose to defend yourself in love, you know. So prepare yourselves, because the enemy doesn't like this. The enemy doesn't want this. So it's not going to be easy sometimes, but if we stay silent, it's just going to get harder. I love you all so much, and that's my short story. But like I said, I have Elizabeth here, who was in my small group. I have seen you grow in a way from afar. I have been a sideline cheerleader of you. I hear you speak, I listen to your podcast, and I'm like, I know this girl, and I'm a little like fan crazy for her, but I'm so excited to hear you speak today, and honored that you said yes to being here with us and sharing with us. So if you guys could put your hands together for
were in the same freedom group.
Yeah.
Like that was like 2019 or something. At my apartment with Kellen. Some of you guys know Kellen. Love Kellen, and just so grateful to be here, guys. Seeing all this many faces, a lot of you guys I haven't seen since like before COVID. So I'm like, hello to everybody. I first want to honor Erica and Kim and the team for what they're doing. So can we put our hands together? When women come together and share their story, there's so much impact in that. And so also for Journey Church, so grateful. I actually met Erica in the first meet of Journey. I was part of like the beginning group, the OGs of Journey. And if you didn't know me, if you have never seen me ever, my name is Elizabeth. And I do have a podcast, so that's probably right there. You follow me, Elizabeth Savvy. And so a little bit about me. I'm the middle child of 3. So my sister's here today. She's like my mini me, and then my friend here, support is a friend. And I was raised in Oklahoma, but born in Miami. And for most of my story starts with so something about me is that I love fashion and beauty. So I had like MUA dreams growing up, and I was like, I'm gonna do makeup and do all this sort of stuff, but that didn't really work out. So I ended up doing advertising and public relations, which helps with what I do today. So my podcast, usually I am behind a mic with my iced coffee, thank you Erica and the team, and just behind like an audience of none. So this is a completely different setup. I literally do not get ready when I do an interview or like anything like that. So this is like such a different setup today. So seeing the actual people that listen to me. I started my podcast in 2020, and it was really because I felt like I had gone through something that at the time I felt like I was the only one that experienced it. And when I was able to work through some things, I realized that God was telling me like there's other women like you, and there's other women that are experiencing the exact same thing. So I need you to talk about it. At the time that I started talking about it, I was still dealing with stuff. It's not that I was like perfect or ready, and I feel like that was something that I want to remind you today is that you don't have to be perfect for God to use you and God to speak through you. And I feel like I had to learn that over the course of 2-3 years that I've been in my walk. And my podcast really stems out of the scripture of Isaiah 61:3, which is that God turns our ashes to beauty. He turns our sorrow to joy, and he really is able to transform our stories and able to show up and just turn everything into good of things that we go through. You know, sometimes we think that because we have experienced things in our life, we feel like maybe would have broken us or destroyed us, and it didn't. You know, you're still here today. And you can look back, and I feel like those are my marks. Those are things that you experience in your life that like you still, you know, you can still get a little, not triggered, but you can still feel it sometimes when things happen. But then you realize, you're like, wow, like I got through that. And at the moment, I didn't think I was going to get through that. And so can we just pray together before I start? So Heavenly Father, I just thank you for each and every one of these beautiful ladies that are here today. I thank you for their hearts, that you may use me to speak to someone today and just really help them and encourage them to speak about their story. In the name of Jesus I pray, amen. Amen. So first question is, are any of you guys a planner? Like, planned out your life? Yes. Journal life? Okay. All right. Is anyone like, I go with the flow? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing on Monday. Yeah, anyone? So, I wish I was like you. I am definitely a planner, like very type A. I've always been since I was young. Like, when they gave out those planners, like at school, I was like, ooh, yes, like using that planner of, yes, all the colors. So I've always been that way. Well, the thing is, if you haven't noticed about life, is that life does not go as planned. So for anyone that's a planner, you probably have a lot of problem with control. Like that, like releasing of the control we're in. And so a little bit about me and my backstory. I grew up in church. My parents really, like, I'm so grateful for them to show me the faith, and from a child. You know, I went through the whole like missionettes in church, Pentecostal church. You guys remember that, the little badges? I did like the whole like purity culture, wear my ring, like did a whole bunch of that stuff growing up. So that was something that was very normal to me. The thing is that I felt since I was very young that I had kind of like, I was always like really good. Like I was like, it's like, okay, she like does everything, she gets straight A's, I don't really have like a, you know, like those people that, like for example, my sisters and us have so many different stories and different personalities. I was like, oh, by the book. Like I was like, that's how I live my life. And even though that was something that I had from the outside, internally that was not the case. So in middle school, I experienced bullying, and so I was a little chunky in middle school, like most kids are, right? But in middle school, someone mentioned about my weight, and that's actually like, you know, when someone says, like, you've never thought that you have a big nose, but then someone says it and you're like, maybe I do have a big nose, like wow, I've never seen it. And so that was kind of what started with me, and so I started feeling so much insecurity about my weight that developed with disordered eating. So if disordered eating is when you have really bad habits with eating that can lead to anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating. And so I lost an extreme amount of weight by not eating. And so everybody was like praising me for like, wow, like look at you. So I got my first boyfriend, you know, and that's how I like felt like I was noticed. It's like, oh, like look at my looks, like now people like me. And so I started dating at a very young age. I don't know who let me. I did it behind my parents' back. But I got to the point that I was dating, at 13, I was dating a 17-year-old. Like, I have no idea who, yes, thank God that didn't work out. But at the time, my first boyfriend, you know, it was like 8 months, and who even counts those boyfriends? But you know, you still put them in there. But he broke my little heart. He went, in Oklahoma, they have like this Christmas show every, like, you know, Christmas time that you go watch lights with your friends. And he went with this other girl to go look at the lights. And he kissed her, and I found out through MySpace. It was so sad. I'm aging myself. Those of you guys that don't know about MySpace, it was it. So MySpace, like, that broke my little poor heart, because I'm like, what? Like, why? So how I already had some insecurities and some things that hit that wound of like, I'm not enough. I'm not, like, what's wrong with me? And that cycle continued over the years. I continued getting in these relationships that led down this road to affirm what I believed about myself. That I was not enough, I was not loved. Who am I? Like, there's always someone better than you. In high school, I dated on and off for 3 years, an unhealthy relationship again. And 2 days before prom, I found out that my boyfriend at the time cheated on me with a freshman. So my senior prom, actually my friend was there when I found out. And it was, again, that wound of like, you're not enough. Like, you're not enough. Like, look at you. Like, you even have, you like work so hard to be loved and to be seen, and nobody sees you. At least that's how I felt. And this whole time I was in church, and I was, you know, knew all the knowledge and knew all the things, but there was something within me that was just not clicking. And you see, there's sometimes that we feel like we can project this person to other people, and people might not know the internal struggles. After high school, I started, you know, not that I left the Lord, but I just really wanted to dedicate my life to the Lord. And if you've been in church too long, you kind of rededicate your life like every few years. I feel especially when you're young, like you're like, I need to be saved again. But then when you're like at the end, like you kind of like stick through. So from, you know, once you're an adult. But usually in that time, I had met people at church, and I was like loving, you know, the community. I was really involved, really on fire for the Lord, and I met this guy. And this guy was like super like the Christian. I had never dated a Christian guy. So I met this guy at church, and I really thought like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I found my boo, like my Christian boo at church. I was around everybody that had that same mentality of like, we get married by 21, we have children by 25, and I was like, that will be me. Like, that is my story. Like, boo, you might want to get married at 30, but that is gonna be me. And everybody would say, they're like, you're gonna be the first one? Oh yes. And so like that guy, he was talking to me about like marriage in the first 6 months, like we're gonna do it, like this is our life. And then slowly over time, things changed. He started saying, you know what, I don't know, like I just feel like if you were like this, maybe, you know, I just feel like, you see, why they're there is because, you know, they have these things, and I feel like you don't have these things. And I started that internal wound again, like hitting at that place. Slowly over the years, it created a very toxic on and off relationship that was with cheating and emotional abuse. And from the outside, nobody knew what was going on in my relationship. You know, I was still, at part of the time I was serving. And a lot of my friends were getting engaged and they're like, girl, you're next. And I'm like, I wish, like, you know, but I wouldn't tell them that because I felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, what is it about me? Why can't I get my perfect plan? And so this developed over time that, you know, my self-esteem, and I felt guilty for the life that I was living behind closed doors, and I felt very convicted, and I isolated myself. I stopped serving, I stopped doing things because I just felt like I couldn't live this life in front of other people. I just felt like I couldn't do it. And I feel like no one understood either. Like everybody around me was living this fairy tale dream that I wish I had. You know, I had this idol of like, I'm going to be, this is my plan. I've had it since I was young. And just for all my single ladies, anybody single here? Anybody? Okay. So I'm gonna talk to a few. Anyone that's in a relationship still qualifies because you're not married. Do not date for potential. If the guy, do not date for potential. Yes. If sometimes we forget that in his word, Jesus says, by their fruits you shall know them. That means that by someone's fruits, you shall know who they are. So it's not just all talk, you know? And so at the moment, I had that like I shouldn't be in this, but like, you know, I just didn't know how to get out and like how, you know, like a lot of chances and everything like that. And I created this codependency that I didn't know at the time, you know, because now I know a lot more than I did then. And you have to have grace with yourself because that's all you knew at the time. But what I felt was a gift from God became my God. Like that person was like my everything. Like I did not know how I was gonna function without this person. But again, from the outside, it was like perceived like, oh, I'm super confident, like I know my worth, like all these things, but I wasn't valuing myself, you know, and I wasn't believing that about me and what I knew. And so, you see, something that I didn't tell you guys is that at 4 years old, I was sexually abused by a family member. And that was something that I actually didn't deal with until my early 20s. So for so many years, I just lived my life in this numbness of what is wrong with me? Why do I feel these emotions? Why do I struggle with certain things? Why am I thinking this way? Like, what is wrong with me? Because I felt at 4 that I wasn't protected, that I wasn't seen, that I wasn't heard. No one explained to me what happened and why my no was taken away from me from a very long time ago. You see, and that was something that, again, was another part that I hadn't dealt with. You see, I had played a part for so many years and living this life of a Christian. Like I call myself a Christian, you know. I was like, I've been raised in church, baptized 10 times, like doing all these things, but I didn't feel the inside transformation. And so I'm gonna ask you today, what are you hiding behind? Is it your Christian walk that you're like, I'm a Christian, I post a social media post of me doing my Bible study in the morning, so check. You know, is it that you, in your job, you're in a certain title and you feel like, I got it all together, like this is me, like I don't need anybody, like look at me? Or is it your family? Maybe you're pursuing like a family that you want to sell, or a perfection that you want to sell to other people, which is not real. You know, and I know for me, like even me being up here does not mean that I have it all together. And I am the first one to say, I am still figuring it out. I am the first one to say. So sometimes we hide behind this persona or this person. Sometimes it's our looks. Sometimes when I was obsessed with like how I looked, of my weight and stuff, I was always weighing myself. Always wanted to make sure that I was like top tier. Like it was like such an unhealthy obsession. I'm all about like health and all of that, you know, but I definitely feel like it becomes such an obsession of a persona that you want to appear to be to other people, a lifestyle, you know, people posting on social media. You know, we invest so much on the external, but forget about the internal things that are happening in our lives. My therapist, when I started going to therapy, she asked me, she's like, you know, I know you like fashion and makeup and beauty and all of that. So I have a question for you. If you were to wear what was going on inside, how would that look? Imagine if what you had going on inside was what people saw. Like if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you are resentful, if you are dealing with a lot of trauma that you haven't dealt with and you just keep like pushing it under, but you see the outside, we looking good, honey, like we're top tier, but on the inside that is not the case. And we don't take so much time to focus on the internal part of us. But can I be completely honest when I tell you that it gets so heavy to wear that, to wear that persona, and to wear that, like to seem perfect and to seem like I got it all together. Don't worry about me, don't worry about me. I'm good. And we think we wear that as a badge of honor. As like, I don't need anybody, I don't tell people stuff, everybody mind their business. When in reality, we can be very like struggling in silence. You know, I have had 2 moments in my life that I really felt like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I love how Kim even mentioned part of that, because I feel like, you know, a lot of people struggle with their mental health and struggle with things that they don't tell others, you know, but they've thought it or they've had experiences of it at a very low. And in 2019 to 2020, you know, I had moved out of my house, was living, was in college, finishing UCF, and I had my plan that was perfect. And I said, like, okay, after that, I'm gonna get married, of course, and I'm gonna go move in with my boo thing, and we're gonna like live this whole life. And even though I know, like someone would say, like, but you weren't in a healthy relationship, so it doesn't count. Well, in my mind, and the kind of relationship, if you've been in a toxic relationship, it feels like a fantasy. Like you feel like it's gonna happen. They promise you these things, and they tell you, oh girl, I'm gonna get you a ring, like, you know, and then when we would break up, you're like, no, now I'm gonna get you a ring, I'm gonna propose to you. Like, what? Like, actually, I went to the store the other day, and I'm like, really? Like, you know, and that selling me this fantasy of what that really was. And so my perfect mapped out plan started crumbling. And he was telling me he didn't even know if he believed in marriage anymore. He told me that actually, you know what, like my life is good right now. Like I had actually got him a job at a place that I was working at, and he started doing really good. And he ended things with me. And I ended up being like, wow, like I helped you get there, you know, and now I'm not good enough. And again, hitting that wound. You're not good enough, Liz. You're not good enough. No one will ever love you. Like you're trying so hard for this to be seen and heard. And my idea of this perfect picture was unraveling. And I remember crying countless nights and saying like, God, like, I know you love me. And if this is what love is, like, I don't want it. Like, I do not want this because it doesn't feel like a pure love. Like, why can I have what these girls and these other people have, which comes so easy? Like, some people actually don't struggle with relationship stuff. I'm like, why is this me? Like, you know, I wasn't asking, what can I do for it? I was like asking, like, why? Like, why is this? And, you know, I remember having to go back home because that relationship ended. We were on and off, so it's kind of hard, the timeline, but I had gone back home and I was just having so many adjustments and life changes at the same time. And so I started getting a rash all over my body and nobody like knew what was going on. Like I started getting like chronic migraines, like passing out. I passed out twice in public, like couldn't drive. Like it was just a very hard time. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. So I did some blood work. Like my family was super worried about me. And I went with my sister to the doctor and they're like, okay, like, so it seems like your blood work is fine, but like, how are you feeling? And I was like, well, like, I feel like sad, like I, you know, just have a few things going on. And they're like, do you feel like you have failed your family? Like, do you feel like a failure? And I was like, yeah. And he's like he was asking like really serious questions. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this is too serious at a doctor's office. And he was trying to figure out if I was depressed. And so he tells me, he's like, yeah, like it seems like your body is reacting to the stress and the tension that you're feeling. Like your body's kind of like giving out, because that's literally what I felt like was happening at the time. And my sister was kind of like looking at me, and I felt embarrassed because I'm like, oh, like she does not know that I think these things. And we got out of there, and that was such like a reality check for me of where I was at. That all these things over the years, not just like one thing, it's multiple things that have led to this moment now. And I'm a believer that if Jesus uses medicine to help you with your mental health, then do that. I think that even as a Christian, you can still struggle with those things like anxiety, depression, things like that, and it doesn't make you less Christian-like. You know, and for me, I feel like that was such a reality check to be like, wow, like I struggled with this. Like this is real. Like this is something that other people, but at the same time, remember my perception of Christianity is like this perfect world. So I don't fit the picture. I don't fit what that looks like. And I realized, you know, that people really struggle with this. And maybe some of you here have felt lost or feel hopeless of a situation. Maybe you feel like, will this ever get better? Like, is this what life is really like? You know, and can I tell you that it gets heavy, and I know that it gets heavy. You know, a few weeks ago, Chelsea Christ, a former Miss USA 2019 TV reporter, you guys saw that she committed suicide. And trigger warning if this is something that is sensitive to you guys, but I definitely feel like that was so heartbreaking as someone that, you know, like you hear this stuff on the news, like kind of like if it's nothing, but it's like, wow, like, and everybody has something so good to say about her. People were like, she's so encouraging, so loving, she's always smiling, she looked like we didn't know. Like that, I like looked up all of them, because I was just kind of in disbelief, because even like I followed her on TikTok, and just even like seeing it, I'm like, what? Like, I would have really never imagined that, and just the way that it all happened. And she pretty much posted like a suicide photo for the world before she did that. And she said in her post, she said, may this day bring you rest and peace. So she was saying to herself, may this day bring me rest and peace for my soul. And I know that I have asked myself, I need rest and peace for my soul. And it's getting heavy. And I can't compare my story or to say that I even understand what was happening in her life to what led her to that. But I know people experience those things. And I want to remind someone today that the only person that can bring you rest and peace for your soul is Jesus. He's the only one that can give us that peace that makes no sense, and that joy that is not based on circumstances. He's the only one. And I know that when I was experiencing such a hard time, I feel like I had to, like God had to like teach me, because I feel like I had such a grip on my life, and to release that to him, because I had to put so much pressure on myself of my perfect plan and my deadlines and how my life was supposed to look like, and my comparison to what other people, but they're only posting their highlights, and I'm comparing my lowest moments to their highest highlights. Like, isn't that kind of crazy that we do that? But we've all probably done that at least one time. We're like, wow, it looks so great to be there, and you're like, not, you know, like one of your lowest spots. And so, you know, I want to remind someone that the person that has the best agenda for your life is truly Jesus, the one that created you. And I feel like until I understood that he was the one that was the perfect person to make a map and a spreadsheet for my life, and I love that stuff, so like, you know, I speak about it in that way, is like, he literally started like piecing everything back together. And that breakup and that healing journey that I've had to walk through from there till now has been one of the hardest things that I have had to go through. And like you can say like, oh yeah, but like I don't relate to that, or like, oh well, like, you know, you're there now, like it's kind of like a victory story. But it's like, I'm telling you that it's like the raw moments of the day to day to get from there to now were like a journey, you know. And people don't show that part. People only show like, oh, I was here, and like a transformation, you know. But the reality is that it was so long. It was me going back 15 times, like no lie, to like, no, this is my perfect plan though, but like this is what I want, like this is my story, like this is what I need it to be like I don't want anything else but this. And I felt like until I was able to release that to God, then God was able to then step in and be like, you've always been loved. Like I've always seen you. Like I've always been there for you. Like I've been waiting for you to release it to me, because I have something way bigger and better than you can ever imagine. You see, with God, we don't have to put that face like we do sometimes on social media. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes when I was at my lowest, I wouldn't want to show that part either. I was like, God, you know, like that's all I would say, like, you know, just help me through, you know. But God is like, why? Like, I want to be honest, like the most rawest version of you, the person that you're like, if someone knew the thoughts that go through my head, that's the version that God wants. And Jesus wants you to show him.
That's right.
The most unfiltered, flattering poses and angles, that is the one that he wants to see. And since it is so hard for us to believe that the one that created us wants that version of us, because we feel like that we already have the expectation of everybody else to be like this picture perfect person. You see, when I let go, God started restoring and putting all the pieces back together into the perfect plan that he had. Has it been hard to accept it? 1,000%. Has it been something that I've had to struggle with to get to this place? Of course. But I realize now that it all like made sense. Like putting, like my relationship with my family got 10 times better over the past few years. My friends, my closeness with my friends has gotten it's at a different level of closeness. I created Beauty Marks podcast. Like what? Like for me, because knowing where my lowest of the lows was, for me being able to now talk about that to other people when I felt like I needed someone to talk to me about that, it's just like mind blowing. And understanding that like there's other people that need to hear your story, and I love that like we're all on the same page with this. Like your story is not too far gone, that God can't use and God can't work through, and even when you're not perfect, it's still okay. You see, when I started unveiling those areas, I had to go back to like childhood trauma. I had to go back to the toxic cycles and unhealed patterns and things that I had created over the years, things that I didn't talk to anybody about, things that I had struggled with that like literally nobody knew that I struggled with disordered eating. Like even my family, they're like, wow, like you lost all that weight. I'm like, oh yeah, you know that I was starving myself? Like I said it super casually, but they're like, okay girl. Like stuff that like we don't deal with, you know, and even to this day, like things that happen that I'm like, oh man, like I have to get out of that mentality. You know, like I'm here for health. Here for health, not about the other parts. And there's so many ways for you to start that healing and like unveiling that. Because I hope you get what I'm trying to say, that we wear this mask. And sometimes until we like let that go, and first starting with God, so like first letting God into that mess and saying like, God, this is my unfiltered self. Like to be honest, if you curse, you can tell him. Like I feel like we're scared of that. Like why? Like why are we so scared to be our most authentic self? To the one that knows everything. And until that breaking happens, then we're able to, I remember one of my friends that, you know, I love when my friends tell me that they're in therapy. I'm like, yes, like, love that for you. But she told me one time, and she's like, honestly, like, I was riding home, and like, I just wanted to like curse, and like, I don't know what just came over me, and like, I just feel convicted for cursing, but then I'm like, wait, I'm like really, really mad. And then I was like, wait, and then I told her, like, girl, like, those are emotions, like, that's anger. I'm not saying, like, you know, don't quote me on how you should live your life, but I'm just saying that the most authentic, like, we really filter ourselves to the core. And like, being able to be so real with God, in that breaks that like mask that we have. And then it's letting people in, safe people in, where that vulnerability can start, creating spaces like this in small group, finding safe people. I've been hurt in church, and I've been hurt by people. I've been backstabbed, I've been called this and that by people. You know, people that didn't understand my story or didn't understand my side of the story have said stuff about me that are hurtful. But I'm like, you don't know. But giving that another chance and understanding that you're not alone is so important. Because when I started talking about what I went through, other people were like, me too. Wow, like, I'm not alone. So you're saying that I'm not, would you think that like you would know that other people, but no. When you're going through it, you really feel like you're all alone.
Right.
And so until then, you know, until I started creating that community, being open with Jesus and others, and also going to therapy. Like, that has been so life-changing, and I'm like, I will be annoying to people, but I'm telling you that like Christian therapy is like top tier. And if you have an opportunity to do it, I really recommend it. All of us. I'm like, I was saying a joke, like I think today I was like, I wish I could give out free therapy, like therapy for you, therapy for you. Because people in therapy go because of people that don't go to therapy. Just saying. Love you all. We hope. No, but there was a long time that I didn't, okay, so I'm not judging anybody, but once you do it, it's just so life-changing to unlock and be able for someone else to give you a different perspective, and to be able to just like your family sometimes, can we talk about it? Like our family's generational just does things a certain way, and sometimes they don't do the right, like they don't understand, they don't know. And so sometimes getting another perspective of someone that's healthy can like help you and break through that. So I want to encourage you to really share your story and understand your story. 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 5, and we'll focus on chapter 4. So 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 5, it's God of all comfort who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any troubles that we have received ourselves. So like God literally comforts us and helps us and guides us and works with us for a bigger purpose. We don't see it at the moment, but so that we can do the same for other people, and that's why you need that community. You know, I remember feeling ashamed of my story and about my sex. This is actually the first day that I mentioned about my sexual abuse, and I was super ashamed of that because I'm like, what? Like, so since 4 years old, I already have baggage. Like, it's not that as I'm older. No. Like any relationship that I get into, I bring that in, and I have to deal with that, and that person has to understand, and I have to like uncover that and have that conversation. Like that's such an uncomfortable thing to do. And then I'm in toxic relationships that other people can judge and say, oh well, she doesn't know. It's just because you see she doesn't value herself, and like instead of being compassionate and understanding, there's other parts of the story. And understanding that dealing with mental health issues is not because I didn't pray enough. It wasn't because I wasn't holy enough. It was because I had stuff that I had to deal with, and they didn't people don't understand your story. And so now I realize that God used all of those marks and redeemed them, because He redeems our story. You know, God uses it all for good, and I have so much compassion for people that have been through toxic relationships or unhealthy relationships or dynamics like never before. Like it's like I'm so alert to that because I know that when I was in that, I didn't really have those kinds of people that went through exactly the same thing that got it, you know? Like, and until you've been in it, I promise you, like, you understand to the next level. You're like, girl, I get it. And same with child abuse, and having so much compassion for people that have been through that. And maybe you haven't been through anything like my story, and that's okay. But I know that you have been through other things, and you have other marks in your life. And our direct pain will be the heart of our purpose. God will use our pain to direct us to those that we can help heal through our story. So it might not be mine, your story might not look like mine, but there's a story that you have to tell based on what you have been through.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a divorce, maybe that's some family dysfunction, maybe that's other things that you have experienced that you're like giving that light to other people, because you have no idea how much you can unlock other people's freedom by you sharing your story. So it's like kind of like, don't be selfish with your story, but then at the same time, like there's so much freedom when you do it, and it's so scary when you do it. And even preparing for this, I'm like, who am I? Like, what do I even have to say? And I relate to Kim. Like, I was raised in a different, people look so different than me, and people went through so many other things than me. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't like struggle with drugs, and I didn't drink all the time, and I didn't. You see, so like we always do that. Like, we always compare our stories, and it's like, no, your story is yours, and God can use that. So if you have found yourself in that situation of feeling at your low, like the lowest of the low that I mentioned, I really want to encourage you to start unveiling that with God. Start showing him those areas, because he knows, but he wants us to be able, because he's a gentleman, and he gives us that space when we're ready to do that with him. Then it's letting people in, and have compassion for yourself. We give so much compassion sometimes to other people, and we're like, oh, it's because they're going through it, you know, it's just because. And so we're like, wait, but like, what have I gone through? And it's not being selfish, it's literally having that awareness to be like, I need right now, maybe I need to like work on this, like let me work on this. And then you're able, once you do that, you're able to then help other people. It's like wear your mask and save yourself kind of before you help a friend. That's kind of how it is. And I really feel like sometimes we get this message of like selfishness, and we get this message of like, oh, you're just bitter, like, oh, you're just, you know, and that's not the reality. Like, you have sometimes, God needs to work with you in private sometimes, so that then you can prepare in public and talk to people in public. And so when you're healthy on the inside, it shows on the outside, and then you're able to be so healthy with your friends, with other people, have compassion, and that comes from the inside. When people have this facade of like, oh, like I don't need anybody, or I, you know, it's mostly of my learning of over time, it's because they have unhealed stuff within them that they feel guarded, and they probably have the right to. They probably have been really, really hurt. And so understanding that, I feel like when you become so self-aware and understand that Jesus talks, like, I feel like that was like so mind-blowing to me, is that in the Bible, God talks so much about our emotions, and people that he called had emotions. Like, I'm talking about suicide, depression, anger, all these things. They went to go kill people. Like this is the real stuff that people experience, and we're like, oh no, this is bad. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. So I want to leave you with 2 questions. Is ask yourself if there is something that I'm hiding behind, that maybe I'm projecting or I don't want people to see, and that's covering those areas. And maybe there's something that you have to heal from, and what are those things? So I really appreciate you guys. I know we're gonna do a Q&A, but I really hope that for one person that heard this and is like, that's me, I hope that you start taking intentional action and know that you're so not alone, and you're seen, and there's someone that can relate to your story. So even if that person might not, that you tell, maybe then that leads to another conversation with someone else, that they're like, wow, thank you so much for sharing that with me. So can you guys
And again, that's how we combat the enemy, right? I love everything that you said. I feel like I was listening. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I was listening to myself speak. You know, certain things that she said, I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. That's been me. You know, and like she said, not every story, every part of her story may be relatable to you, but you have your own. Fill in the gaps, right? We went to Echo Conference, a bunch of us last week, and Lisa Brevier was there, and she was talking about being someone's godmother. And if you guys haven't had the chance to listen to her podcast or to read that book, I highly suggest it. I just started it. And Elizabeth, I just want to say that I feel like that's where you're headed to. You're headed to be like someone's amazing spiritual godmother, you know, someone coming right behind you who's in a different season, an earlier season in life that needs that encouragement and needs to hear your story. And I love what Lisa said, because she said that every one of us has